Hey guys, welcome to Bold TV. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us here on Facebook Live and on Periscope. I am Carrie Sheffield here with Clay Aiken, who is feeling much better today.
Much better, not completely
yes.
100%,
Yes.
so hopefully I won't
What
sneeze
are you,
or
like
cough.
92%?
I'm good at 95. I think we're
Okay,
pretty
95,
good.
even better.
Enough for you guys to feel somewhat safe. But
Yes, yes. This is a safe space.
Yes. We're back on Friday. That's
We're
nice.
back on our normal schedule. We had our special New Year's episode last week, and we were back on track for normal. As normal, I'm going to ask you guys, please like Bold Global on Facebook and check out our podcast version of the show on iTunes. And let's talk about what happened this week, first of all. What did you think of the Trump presser?
I think it's going to be a long 4 years. Is that what you want to call it? Is that a presser? Is that a press conference? Is that what it was?
It was like the campaign all over again.
That's exactly what I thought. I said someone should tell him he's not still running for office, that he actually won. I mean, how many times do you need to talk about how you're better than Hillary Clinton?
To be fair, though, he is trying to be undermined. I got to say, that BuzzFeed report, I was so turned off by it. That was irresponsible.
Fair enough,
It was
fair
not
enough. I agree
journalism.
with you.
They are trying to undermine the legitimacy of his victory. And so I think maybe that's why he's so just upset.
See, I don't know if I'm with you on that. I don't know that anybody has tried. I think that's the problem that I have with this, his belief that there was no hacking into the election, et cetera. It's because he believes that people were trying to undermine the legitimacy of his election. And I have not heard a Democrat yet imply that he would not have won had this not happened. No one's saying that he wasn't elected fairly by the Electoral College. We're just saying there's hacking, and I think that it's irresponsible for him not to acknowledge that this happened. So he's starting to move that direction.
He's acknowledging that there is hacking, but a lot of people like to say, well, he lost the popular vote, and then there was this hacking.
You do know that's true,
And the
right?
hacking. No, I know that's true, but like to say that somehow.
I just want to make sure we're
but
clear.
it does not undermine the fact that he won.
No, I get that. I'm
like
one of those
saying,
folks who
like,
said, listen, we
we're
knew the
playing
rules going in.
three-pointers, and
We
he
knew the
won
rules going in.
layups, but because he won three-pointers, that means that he's.
Listen,
Anyway.
We knew the rules going in, and I'm one of those Democrats who believes the Electoral College actually plays a very important role. I think it did exactly what it was supposed to do this time. I think it
worked.
made sure that those folks in the middle of the country, the Rust Belt, had a voice that they might not have had, you know. I mean, where did Hillary Clinton's margin come from in the popular vote? It came from these very blue states, and that's not. And the reason the Electoral College is there is to make sure that type of thing doesn't happen. So
Yeah, the blue wall, exactly. But, you know, I thought what was interesting, I just have to say, if there's ever proof for karma, it was this whole BuzzFeed episode, because basically this BuzzFeed report, and Ben Smith, editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed, I worked with him at Politico. He did some stuff at Politico that got Politico in trouble. I thought it was very irresponsible for Ben to publish this, but I do have to say,
they're clickbait. They try to do it. They want to be a.
But it's karma, because Donald Trump was. He made his political bones on trying to question the legitimacy of Barack Obama with the birth certificate. It was like a non-issue thing that he made into an issue. And so it's sort of like a karma thing that now this BuzzFeed report is trying to make a non-issue an issue, in my opinion.
But I honestly don't. I don't know that I believe that people are buying into this memo that was leaked, you know, that BuzzFeed posted. I don't think there are many people who have read it and thought, oh yeah, those things happened. So I don't know that they're going to be successful if that's really their goal in trying to make a non-issue an issue. I don't think they're going to be successful, and that's because in large part the mainstream media has not accepted it as fact. They're all.
That's
I mean,
true.
It's unsubstantiated. I do think it was not fair of him to accuse CNN of what he accused them of. What CNN did was very different than what BuzzFeed did. CNN reported on something that they verified and was accurate. He and President-elect Trump and President Obama were briefed that this was out there. That's true, and CNN didn't print the salacious crap. You know,
I will give CNN more credit than BuzzFeed, but I still think the whole thing, because it's sort of like it's still floating something that's not true.
But hold on a second.
Anyway.
If there is a memo of some kind that the intelligence community feels is important enough to go and brief the president-elect and the president on, that, therefore, they have said it's important enough, and therefore the public should know that this happened. And that's all CNN did. That's all they talked about. They didn't talk about what it was. They didn't claim that it was true. But I think the public has the right to know that something has made the intelligence community believe that the president and the president-elect need to be updated.
But it was classified, which is another problem.
And they did not. Disclose what was in it.
But the fact that it was brief, I still think that CNN shouldn't have done what they did.
Wrong.
But all right,
Good
tell
job.
us what you think.
Yeah, you can comment on Facebook throughout the show. Make sure you're commenting on Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz.
Yeah, let's talk about next week.
Let's do that.
So,
Why? Because you were uncomfortable that you thought I might have the upper hand on you on that one? What? I'm kidding. Next week's show is going to be on the 20th, which of course is a big day. I mean, here it comes.
Yes.
Here it comes. 4 years starting next Friday. Donald Trump will be sworn in as president. We're going to be covering the event, of course. Carrie's going to be in Washington, and you're going not just for the inauguration and to cover it for us and talk about it for us, but what else are you going for? Tell us.
I am so excited. Bold is partnering with HuffPost and also with Bustle.com. We've had a lot of Bustle people on our show. The three brands.
I thought we weren't on camera. I saw the thing, and Ben, you got to be careful with this. If I'm on camera, if I'm wiping my nose, don't go back to the camera. Goodness.
It's authentic. Come on.
So what are you going to be down there for?
Love
Sorry,
you.
sorry.
Nose and all. So we're going to be at the National Press Club. So if any of our viewers here are going to be in D.C. at the time, please join us at the Press Club.
But what are you doing there?
It is going to be a conference on empowering women, but we welcome men too. So we're having Evan McMullin, who was an independent presidential candidate. He's going to be speaking. We're also having Michael Moore. So we've got left and right. We've got
So
all
why
sides covered.
why did this conference get scheduled, when it got scheduled, and on the topic it was scheduled?
Sure. So we think of it as kind of like Politicon, where we know there's going to be so many political junkies in town, both on the left and the right, because the day after the inauguration, there's the Women's March. The day of the inauguration, there are Trump supporters. So we're trying to get people to talk to each other.
But women's issues are very
women's
important
issues-
right now at the inauguration
Exactly. So it is
Because?
focused on women, and it's HuffPost Women's section that's sponsoring it.
Because?
Because we want. There's an organization, for example, called She Should Run that saw 4,000% increase in the number of women who say they now want to run for office. They've been inspired by what happened this campaign cycle. I've talked a lot about my problems I had with things that Donald Trump said.
There you go. There you go.
No, but you know what?
Women
I
have
like
been
Donald
energized.
Trump.
Women have.
As in, like, I like what he can do.
Wait, what?
I like the fact
Hold on.
that.
Can we rewind the footage and play that back, please? Can we go back and play back every episode of this program that we have had since we began on Donald Trump and Carrie Sheffield
I like
is a
Donald
never Trumper,
I am.
never Trumper, and now we're getting this. I mean, see, this is an issue that I have with Republicans in Congress who hated him before and now kissing up to him, and I have a lot of respect for Marco Rubio, who stood up this week and has said that he might not. I mean,
that was bold. It was good.
it was
Yes.
bold. It was also, the start of his 2020 campaign. But,
Of course, yep.
But still, just like Cory Booker began his 2020 campaign, but don't pull this mess right here. That's not bold, girl. Don't start flipping. If you have an opinion, don't just
Look,
start changing it because all of a sudden he's
I'm-
the leader of your party.
No, he's the leader of our country. He is your president. He's my
listen, you've
president.
not heard
He
me
is
disagree
all
with
of
that.
y'all's president. So
You haven't
we
heard me
have
disagree with
no choice but to deal with.
But I
this.
don't have to like it, and all of a sudden you're
but-
liking it.
No, I'm saying I like the fact that Donald Trump represents this opportunity for the left and the right to actually start listening to each other. I think that
It does, yes.
Yes.
He represents an opportunity for us to recognize how important it is to
Yes.
listen to each other. Let's
Yes.
not pretend he's
Yes.
going to be the real catalyst for that.
Well, I do give him credit for standing up against the fact that this is quantifiable. 80 to 90% of the quote-unquote mainstream media is self-identified liberal or Democrat. So,
As
Just that-
individuals, not as organizations.
but
Let's be very.
but
let's be
as the Supreme Court said, an organization is a composition of people.
Okay, yeah, that was bullshit. So,
Well, you know what? I think Donald Trump's nominees are going to disagree.
and that's what scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you. That's what scares the hell out of me. Oh God. So who's going to be at this thing?
So, like I said, we're going to have Evan McMullin, Michael Moore. We've also got Amber Tamblyn, Ashley Judd, who actually went to the Kennedy School. We graduated the same year. She was thinking about running for Senate in her home state of Kentucky, but decided not to. I think in part because she's got the Hollywood.
What's wrong with Hollywood people running for Congress
Hey.
and whatnot?
I would vote for you
Good.
in Harlem. Yeah.
Oh goodness. So you can watch. People can watch that on live stream
Yes.
on Facebook. Is that right?
Yeah,
On their
we're going to be
Facebook?
sharing it. So it's going to originate on the HuffPost Women's page. and then we're going to share it onto the Bold page. So it's going to be an all-day thing from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are taking a break to watch Donald Trump swearing in I will be watching it from 12 to 1.
Because you love him. Because Carrie Sheffield, you heard it today.
I love everyone.
Carrie likes Donald Trump.
I like this opportunity. It's not what I would have chosen, but we have no choice.
I'm getting, oh my gosh, I'm going to get whiplash here today from you. I mean, but okay, so let's just, I will agree with you, we'll concede that yes, it's an opportunity for people to learn to talk to each other and understand the importance of discussing issues with each other in a empathetic and respectful way. It's something we haven't done, and we're going to try to do that here today. Yes?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Exactly. We try to do it every week. And we love having you involved because we have some really insightful, just thoughtful people who write in and share your thoughts. So please keep going. In fact, we have a comment here from Jan Harrison Marr, and she says, unfortunately, Donald Trump has been forgiven for every comment, action, and blatant lies. Why is it people that they develop amnesia where he is concerned?
I don't know that he's been forgiven for everything, Jan. I don't know that I've forgiven him for everything.
Well, I haven't either.
But listen, it highlights you do make a point. Jan makes a point because it highlights the fact that there is a group of people who voted for Donald Trump, who supported Donald Trump, who are going to at least have been very accepting of everything he said and have forgiven him even for the incendiary stuff he said. And then there's a group of people who I think, as a progressive, need to do a better job of not just completely disagreeing with him every time he says something. So Jan's right. There is a faction that's going to forgive him for every single thing he does. But I have a feeling, a little bit of a seed of thought.
Inkling?
And listen, I thought he was going to, did I or did I not say that I thought Donald Trump would win? Okay.
You did.
So I saw it coming, which makes me think I'm smart. I also think that within the next year to year and a half, the bloom is going to be off the rose for a lot of Donald Trump supporters. I think his campaign style and what he has done, what he did over the course of the campaign, the way he contrasted with Hillary Clinton, who was someone that a lot of people didn't like, was very refreshing for folks. And I think they're very refreshed by it now, especially as he's talking about the media being against him and whatnot. And you see, even as I comment, I think somewhat unbiased, people are very angry because they think the media is against Donald Trump. I do think that within the next year, folks are going to say, listen, God, you act like a 14-year-old all the time. And so that's my prediction. Let's hope I'm right again.
Come back here, a Bold Global, a year from now, and we'll see if Clay was right.
Yeah.
I mean, my hope is that he rises to the office. This is one thing that I say to my friends in entertainment or, the Hollywood crowd. You guys believe in nuance. So,
yeah, we're so monolithic. We all agree with.
No, as in like in art. Like art is supposed to be about nuance. So, like for example, in 1950s, there was this groundbreaking film, High Noon, that presented the first anti-hero. It was someone, because in the past before that, it was either black or white, villain or hero, and High Noon was this complicated figure. And so this is what I say to my friends in entertainment and art. Okay, yes, I didn't want Donald Trump. Yes, you didn't want him either. But is there any point at which he could be sort of a complex anti-hero? Like, is there any redemptive quality to him? And I think that the answer is yes.
I don't disagree with that. I've not ever disagreed with that. I'm not one of those folks who says absolutely not to everything. I don't know that I think Hollywood is all about nuance, though. I mean,
they want to make money. The
nuance doesn't sell. Those big bang-ups.
Yeah.
Things.
Comment here from Lori. For you.
Clay, do you really think Lori Finney, do you really think those who saw the rose rather than the thorns will ever? Yeah, I do. I think we'll ever see that. I think eventually, folks, as we watch this press conference on Wednesday, no one, I don't believe anyone, looked at that press conference and thought presidential. And I think that folks are going to expect, because Donald Trump said, I can be more presidential than anyone, I think people are going to come to expect when we do have a crisis. Right now he's got the luxury of not having to be the person who makes the decisions, not having to be the person who makes the country feel. The president, George W. Bush, did a good job of it. Barack Obama's most presidents have done a very good job when there's a national crisis, when there is a time of uncertainty within the country,
Right,
being the person to rise to the occasion and calm fears and make us feel comfortable. And that's going to happen with Donald Trump. It hasn't happened yet because he's not been the person who's been responsible for that. Barack Obama has been. When it's all on him and he has to rise to the occasion, I think that people are going to look to him to help them make them feel better about some crisis. And he's not going to be able to do it because his instinct is to charge at everything with some sort of anger or some sort of indignity. And I think that that's going to make folks at some point go, "Whoo, where's Mike Pence?" When I'm not going to ask for Mike Pence.
Or Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan is like the sausage or the saucer to
or
cool
Barack Obama,
whatever the phrase
or
is.
Barack Obama. I think as much as you think Barack Obama was the cause for Donald Trump, I believe that Donald Trump is going to make people really miss Barack Obama. Okay, there you go. That's my other prediction. Write it down. We got to move on, girl.
I don't know if
We got to move on.
Give
me the last word.
Okay. Let's move on. Yes, let's talk.
Let's talk about one of those issues that people have very opposing views on.
Yes, and one that was touched on in the campaign quite a bit. And in light of the timing and this coming weekend, it's Martin Luther King weekend on Monday. We wanted to have a special conversation looking at race in America, and
we've been picking one topic in the past few weeks and kind of digging deeper into it and letting you kind of focus and marinate on one particular issue. So if you have an idea for a topic we should be talking about, please send it to us. If you something you want to discuss, please give us your thoughts on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. Today, we're going to have a talk about
race in America, race relations, the legacy of Dr. King, and where do things stand today, and where can we go in the future? And I can't think of better guests than we have today. I'm very excited, and
we've got John Burnett. We've got John.
Yes.
They're already here. They've had to sit through this entire. They've had to sit through Carrie's flip-flopping. Sorry about that. We got John Burnett here. He's an author, a businessman, and a freedom fighter, an urban financial freedom fighter, which means
empowering the people through financial literacy and engaging capitalism.
Okay, and we got D. Watkins.
Music to my ears.
D. Watkins here. He's the author of. He's an editor at large at Salon, and he's the author of this book, The Cook-Up. Tell us, D, about The Cook-Up and what made you want to write it, and why people need to read it.
Well, because, when you're talking about young black kids in America, especially ones who grew up in a crack era like myself, the media, they get it wrong. It's not to double back down on the campaign talk, but the whole super predator thing. All of these kids are, monsters running around with automatic weapons and aiming them at grandmothers walking out of churches. And it's just not true. It's not a true thing. A lot of these things come from lack of opportunity, poor schools and all of these different things that come on a systemic level. And The Cook-Up is my story. It talks about some of the things I went through after my older brother was murdered, and what I actually had to go through to actually make it out of that situation and to be able to find my own sanity and the redemptive power of art and education and how these different things affect us all.
And you're from Baltimore, and you saw firsthand what was happening in light of Freddie Gray's death, and you've been talking, and you're basically a voice for Baltimore.
Yeah, I try to be. I try to shed light on a lot of those dark situations and work with a lot of people who are doing positive things to fix Baltimore and make it the city it could be.
There's been, especially in the last year or so, there's been a whole bunch, in my opinion, a lot more talk about race relations in general. We've had a lot of news stories about police officers shooting unarmed black men. We've had a lot of tension in that area. Do you think that we've had more problems recently, or do you think we've just discussed them more?
It's too many experts. There's too many people who jump on these podiums and say that they're experts on race when every situation is different. It's not a simple answer. And I think the best thing that we all can do is understand that, my social context and your social context is different. There's going to be some things that we have in common, like we both probably would like this book. But then there's going to be...
We all have that in common, folks.
And you know who else likes that book? Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, yeah.
Dee was just mentioned in Oprah Winfrey magazine with the write-up, so it's exciting.
So, we're going to have some things that we disagree on, but at the same time, there's no simple answers in it. There's no one book you can read to solve these problems, or there's not one speech you can listen to. It's very complex.
So, but that didn't answer my question. Do you think we've had more racial issue? I'm gonna go over.
Okay, so I think yes. The answer is yes. I think they have been getting a lot more attention. Which explains the birth of all these race experts. But I think it's good that we're having a conversation, and I think that a lot of different people who didn't believe that there were issues with race in this country are starting to feel differently because of camera phones and some of the things that they're seeing on camera, some of the things that police officers are saying, some of the things that Trump has been caught saying. Like, people, they're seeing these things, whereas if it was like 10 years ago, people would say, Trump would never say, I want to just grab women by the uterus. But now,
you do that?
Yeah, Trump can.
That is uterus.
It's locker talk. It's locker talk.
Also a surgeon, too.
Locker room talk.
He's an obstetrician now. John, do you think
The best.
This camera phone thing is true? I mean, do you think it's just the proliferation of media that has brought these issues to the forefront, or do you think that we just really have the situation is worse now than it has been?
I think it's a combination of both. We're definitely we're stimulated by our eyes, by our ears, and things that we hear from other people's experiences as well. So when you have all those things converging at once, especially through social media, then it kind of it taps something on both sides. If someone is a black person is victimized in the community, those in those similarly situated communities it'll drum up some anger, and on the other side, they will say, well, they'll point to the black on black crime as being the issue and not the economic elements that this brother just mentioned. So it's a combination of certain things.
Let me ask you about that economic element, because there's a writer with the Wall Street Journal. You might know Jason Riley. Yes. I don't know if you've seen Jason Riley's work, but he wrote a book. He's African American, and he wrote a book looking at race in America. And the title is not very subtle. It says, "Please stop helping us, how liberals make it hard for blacks to succeed." He looks at this economic question, and he points out that on a per capita basis, if you look at during the Great Depression, people were a lot poorer across all races. So, and yet the crime rate was much lower. So
we should all just be poor now?
No. It's not about that. It's about saying the fact that being poor doesn't mean that you have to commit crime. He's saying that our country, on a per capita basis, the market basket of goods that you can
He's
get,
separating behavior from values
from economics.
Right.
He's saying that we actually are a very rich country, but we have been depraved of our values, and those are things that are intangible. It's not about the price tag.
Well, a couple of years ago, I believe it was Al Sharpton that went to Chicago and brought the community together along with its leaders. And he wanted to talk about gun violence and certain things of that nature. And of course, we all know that that's a huge issue. It's a crisis, not even an issue, it's a crisis. However, many people in the audience that attended, they said, look, we don't have a violence problem, a gun problem. We have an economic problem. We have poor schools. We have lack of job opportunities. We have broken homes. If you fix that foundation, get back to the values, that's one of the key things that transpired during that was evident during the Great Depression. Families were intact, and family had a sense of value.
Right.
So Ben Carson talked about that in his confirmation hearing.
What Riley's saying is that you don't need money to have values.
Yeah, but hold on. I'm going to get onto this crap right here, because comparing it to the Great Depression period, yes, if everyone is poor,
not even just the Great Depression.
If everyone is poor,
let me say this.
Saying the Great Depression. It's like the most.
It's easier. In Chicago, and I've been to Chicago. I've donated almost 1,000 books to the Lawndale area, and I'll say this. It's easier in some of these spaces to get a gun than it is to get a job. Would John Riley have that job at the Wall Street Journal if his name was Keon Riley? Would he get that call back? So you have to add that to the equation as well.
I agree with you, brother, 100%. I was born in like I used to usually say, the People's Republic of Brooklyn, in East New York. no less. It used to be called Vietnam. Had I not had a father who was a maniac in terms of disciplinarian and a loving mom who she got her little whips in from time to time as well. But if I didn't have that structure, I would have went that same way in terms of the drugs and the violence. In fact, I was presented an opportunity, not just to sell, but to do drops where I didn't even have to stand on the street. So it's very important to have that strong foundation, getting back to family values and that structure, so that way, no matter what temptations are around you, we can have more people succeed and come out of that environment. But we also have to create opportunities. We can't have these failing schools. You know, that's sort of like the new plantation, if you really look at it, where black and brown kids are trapped into schools where they're not learning, don't have up-to-date materials, very seldom are introduced to vocational training or other things that can help them escape the poverty trap.
Okay, well now why does that happen, Dee? I mean, is there not something to be said for this disparity in income that leads to that?
I want to say it, and I agree. I'm going to say it, and this is the problem. So when I was a kid, right, I used to hear older people say, "Man, the schools are so messed up." And, and from my older brothers. And then when I was talking to my dad about that, and, the schools are messed up. And now I talk to my nephews, the schools are just so messed up. So why is this the same thing? Why has it been the same thing for so long, right? Well, social reproduction. For capitalism to sustain, you have to create a permanent underclass. And one of the ways you do that is through poor education. People notice. They know.
You think that's a conscious decision on people's part?
Yeah, I do. I actually do, because
What is that
I've been to 160 schools over the last year, and I've been to some schools in some nice neighborhoods that were beautiful, small classrooms and 2 teachers and technology all over the place, chalkboards that glow in the dark and flip around and go in and out. And then I've been to schools with 40, 50 students in the classroom, no books except for the ones I donated. And
Do you find that those are racially disparate also?
Absolutely. But it's also an economic factor too. So it's both of these two monsters working together to effectively oppress people at a really high level.
What about in New York, where we have one of the highest per capita spending? It's not about the spending. And I went to a school in Kansas City where I was one of the only white kids, and I was picked on for being white. And I had friends who were black friends of mine who got picked on for being my friend. And economically, the schools were actually very successful. They were shiny, glistening. They had the resources. It was.
But you know what? There's
How do
between...
you define schools that have resources? Like, how do you define that?
Well, no, like physical resources. And this gets back to the point that Jason Riley is making: is it's not about the money. It's about the lack of teachers.
But,
like a lot of.
I want to know, what do you mean? Because I went to a school a couple of weeks ago that doesn't have heat, and it's 2017. So I wouldn't know what you mean by resources. Like,
listen, it's not just physical resources, and I think that you hit on something that I agree with. But if you have a school that it can be a glistening, wonderful school in an impoverished area, and still not have the same resources as a run-down school in a rich area, because when you have families who are working 3 and 4 jobs in order to make ends meet, they're not able to volunteer their time. They're not able to be there to support the school. When you've got very rich families where mom or dad stays home and can go answer the phone for the school every day, then you end up but that also brings back to what you're talking about that family value issue. It's very difficult to instill those family values if you're at work 70 hours a week. Do you disagree with that?
It is, but the thing is that my parents, when my brothers and sisters were raised, mom didn't work. I was like a oops baby. My mom had me when she was 43. She was already working. Oops, we did it again. I was number 7, and the last one. So my parents were already working at the time, but that structure was already in place.
Right, but your mother stayed home for that structure with your older siblings, yes?
With them, yeah. But my oldest brother was old enough to be my father. Most of them were, doing their own thing.
But
when I came along. But the point is, the structure was there. But I want to go back to what.
But I want you to answer my question.
Okay, go ahead.
Does that? I mean, this shit. Do you
take 2?
Does that? Do you not think that there is a correlation between having a successful structure? Is that possible when you're working 70 hours a week, when the parents are not able to be home because their jobs are not their income is not allowing them to?
The way my father was, he didn't have to be there. his discipline, his structure.
Because
and
your
what
mother
he
was
said.
there.
Even if mom wasn't there.
He
I barely-
set, he set the tone.
He set the
Yeah.
tone, and
Well,
there was a price to pay. But the thing is that we all brought up things from a bottom up approach, right? In terms of resources. When I ran for New York City Comptroller in 2013, I looked at the entire New York City budget, and if my memory serves me correctly, we spend about $27 to $29 billion on an annual basis on education alone. Some state budgets don't amount to that amount for everything in that state. So we spend $27 billion annually. So there's enough resources. It's how those resources are allocated. Heat in school. If we spend $27 billion, there should be heat. There should be technology in the classrooms. There should be highly qualified teachers. And the kids should be given even before, during, and after school resources.
Federal money goes to the states, and the states determine how that's spent, though. And if a state doesn't put a priority on education, if a state doesn't put a priority on equality of education,
$27 billion
part of that-
sounds like a
But
priority.
Part of that, I think we should have a debate about this: teachers' unions, because
Absolutely.
teachers' unions are
and contracts, the way the contract, where that money is
like
going.
a friend of mine worked for Teach for America, which is constantly fighting with the teachers' unions, and the Teach for America's teachers, they work crazy hours. They spend their own money. They
Okay, we're getting off topic, though.
no, but I think
getting
that
off
this is a
topic,
big
though.
problem in terms of like a shiny school with bad teachers is going to produce students who can't read and can't write. Let's
We're
go to some
totally on
questions.
education, though.
Yeah,
So,
no, let's
go ahead.
get some comments here. And please keep sending them our way. Becky O'Brien says, "I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri. I believe you all would be surprised as to what a really good community is."
I'll be there next week.
Will you?
Oh,
Okay, well, let's finish what she says,
says-
'cause I got a rebuttal.
Yeah, she says there is a vibrant Catholic school, ball teams, businesses that see neighbors and not color of skin. The media distorted a great town, and I cannot tell you how upsetting it is to know that Ferguson is now a dirty word.
Dee, let me ask you this with regard to that. Can you tell Becky's race by what her comment was?
Yeah, there's no such thing as not seeing color. Like, it's just ridiculous. This is America. You don't have to be. Yeah, she's white.
Yeah, but I guess when I read that,
Not
I
because
want
I
to
know
ask you
Becky
about.
either.
I want to ask you about whether to talk about how people see things differently and how it's very difficult for me as a. Ruben was at my house all week. Ruben Stutter.
Aw.
We talk
American
about
Idol.
this. We talk about this all the time, and it's impossible for me as a white man. I know white privilege exists. I absolutely believe it, but I still can't see it everywhere. I still am not capable of noticing it in every single situation and realizing that it's always an issue. And I think that there are folks who might who grew up in Ferguson in a way, who might see it in a different way. Do you think there are a lot of people who think Baltimore is a lovely place to live?
Oh my God, this book is a love story to Baltimore. There's so much beauty in the city. There's so many. There's amazing shops and amazing people, and there's some great teachers, and there's some great families, and it's beautiful. But what we saw, and actually what we see in the mainstream media, is just clips from what happened last year, the year before last, right? Even when the police officers were on trial, they were showing clips from what happened in 2015, as if that was going on in real time.
Do you think? We've had a black president. Do you think Barack Obama has helped race relations in the country, or do you think he's
in a symbolic way? When I was a kid, I didn't grow up. I didn't know any black college professors or any black writers or any black, people that did anything except for work for the city or sell drugs or work for the hospital. So, now that I work with a lot of young people, they're like, oh, wow, I can be a journalist. I can write a book. I can be a college professor. So, there's many kids who are growing up now and they're looking at Barack Obama and they're saying, wow, I don't think, even when he tried to do things to affect, directly have a direct impact on black people, it always goes back to, you can put the funds out, but you can't control where those funds go. So this is why you see things like unemployment go down across the country, but it'll still go up in certain black communities. It's not that black people don't want jobs.
I agree. I think the symbolicism of President Obama was remarkable. I was there for his inauguration in 2009. I was inspired by the fact that our country crossed that barrier. I think that was amazing. I disagree with him obviously on policy, but the fact that he broke that barrier is heroic.
But has it
I
mid
think-
relations between?
Well, we have some polling on that, but we'll get to the polling. But I wanted to just mention one or ask a question on the question of white privilege, because I know, having been in schools where I was in the minority, people who hung out with me were ostracized, and because they were acting white. And so if we're going to criticize someone for acting white when we say we want white privilege,
Who wants
at
white
what-
privilege?
no, what I'm saying is I think that a lot of
take
it
some.
is behavior.
I'm going to the bank. I'm going to the bank to get a loan later.
I'll take a double order.
That's my favorite response we've ever had.
Should I get it in an IV?
Go to commercial. Go to commercial.
No, I want to know if white privilege is I know for a fact, like a friend of mine, he used to work for Michael Steele, who was the first black chairman of the Republican National Committee. He would tell me how here in Gramercy, which is a rich neighborhood in Manhattan, he has a white roommate, and he gets stopped by the police. He's black, and his roommate does not. So Mr. Republican gets stopped by the police, and his white roommate doesn't. I'm not saying that people look through the world through a racial lens. True. However, how are we going to say that behavior doesn't matter as well? So if we're going to criticize someone for acting white, and by acting white that meant hanging out with the white girl who gets all the straight A's, who doesn't do drugs, who doesn't get in gangs, like why?
I don't really think
What's the
that's- I
end?
don't think-
Hold on. What's the end of that
I mean,
sentence?
that's, but you know,
What's the
this is
end
why
of it?
social context is so important, because that's just one experience.
No, but I know that phrase is very
I
common,
I grew up in the projects, and I knew kids who only had white friends on the other side of town because they like manga and like those types of, the cartoons with like the kid that turns on fire, and that was their wave. Like, there's no one American experience, and this is why we always bump heads and we can't really communicate, because we think that our experience is everybody's
Right.
experience. And
If you, but what's the end of that
I
sentence?
agree.
What's the end of the
not
sentence?
saying
If
my
you,
experience.
no, I want to hear the end of your sentence. If we're going to criticize black people for acting white, what's the end of the sentence? What were you going for?
What I'm trying to say is that I think that people, to a large extent, could create their own privilege. Like, my ancestors were Irish. When Irish ancestors came to America, they were treated like dogs. They literally had signs that said, "No dogs" or "No Irish." My ancestors were Mormon. They were slaughtered by our government. The reason they went to Utah was because it was not a mainstream Christian faith. The government of Missouri, it was legal to murder a Mormon until 1976 because the government hated Mormonism.
Okay, let's
So
go
I
to
think
this.
there's
Let's go to this
persecution
before
and
we get
there's
off, and we were
privilege.
off topic
Anyway.
again. Can we ask the question? Steve Wilkins says, can we ask the question as to the perception? Because I think it's maybe
Irish is still white, and it still is American.
Right. Okay.
It kind of
Can
works.
right. I mean, I don't know that white people are going to solve the problem here. Can we ask?
I think it's about
Can we
dialogue.
ask the question as to the perception that's caused by crime? The perception that's caused by crime rate in black neighborhoods, and what can be done to overcome this stigma? This is from a viewer. I believe this has to do with the overall view by whites. Why don't more people stand up and take their neighborhoods back publicly and try to change the perception?
I think people are doing it. It's just not reported on. And a lot of us don't really have the resources or the ability to promote it. So as a journalist, one of the things I try to do is every time I see somebody doing something on the local level that's making an impact, I write about it. I get the stories out there. There's a guy, Lance Lucas, who he trained 100 people under the mayor's workforce program last year. And out of 100 of those people, 60 of them became A+ certified in 3 months. 60 of those people got jobs making like around $25 an hour and up in 3 months. That's 60 people escaping poverty in 3 months. So, but these are the stories that don't
get told.
These are the stories that don't get told. They don't make it out there. So we're working. People don't really understand that slavery went on for over 400 years. It's only been over for like 150 years. Like, we're still working out of the negative. We're still crawling out of being property. It's not. You can't fix these issues. Like, you know what? Black people, get your stuff together and go and claim what's yours. It doesn't work like that.
John, the Black Lives Matter movement. It's controversial. I have to say, and this is one of the things I talked with Ruben about. My first reaction when I heard someone respond to that with, "Well, all lives matter," was, "Well, that's true." It wasn't until I heard someone explain to me why that can be offensive to people that I recognized another white privilege thing right there. Does Black Lives Matter help the situation, bringing attention to these issues?
Well, let me answer your question first.
Yeah. Because you know I'm gonna come at you if you don't. I will come right at you.
Trained us all good.
The answer is yes. However, we have to look at the way it was birthed. It was birthed without structure. I think it was two women that started it. It was started from, look, we need to bring attention to these injustices. I totally agree, totally understand it. However, I don't think they believed that it would actually go mainstream and catch on like it did. Because once it actually spread it didn't have the infrastructure. It didn't have the list of codified demands. It didn't have infrastructure. So if someone goes out and does something negative and say Black Lives Matter, there was no infrastructure to say, no, that person is not part of our group to protect the brand and protect the name. Now, even some people that might agree with Black Lives Matter on the left, right? They may not want to be associated with it because of the brand. So I think they're a victim of their own
and I
success.
think the comments you made are similar
thereof.
to ones that Oprah Winfrey said, that it doesn't seem like there's leadership, there's not
infrastructure.
It's we don't know it's very amorphous and kind of chaotic is my sense of what she said.
Right.
But and I want to pull up some polling here that looking at from Gallup. So they looked at the question, they're asking whites and blacks, how do you view race in America and race relations? So this is dating back to the George W. Bush era. And you can see this notable downtick right around the time that Black Lives Matter began. And this happened during the Obama presidency. So my question is...
A downtick amongst the African-American population,
amongst both,
too. Yeah,
both races said that there's been a downtick in the quality of race relations. And I think that this is sad. And so I guess the question is, I mean, it is...
That's going up.
Clay's pointing up. The trajectory is going it's slightly up a little bit now.
But it's up amongst whites. It's up amongst whites.
You also have the rise. You have the rise of social media and technology during that time too. So people are actually starting to see. This is why they're changing their minds, because they see it. It's very, very easy to have all of this racism and these negative things happening in the world when you don't have to look at it. But then when you're forced to look at it, Yeah,
there's a comment here from Rondalie Deschamps who says, I shudder to think what was happening before we had the cameras everywhere.
Right.
And I think that was something that President Obama said when there was this vicious attack on the disabled white teenager by a group of teenage African Americans. And President Obama said this is more just the fact that cameras are accessible versus the fact that this he was saying it was already happening before, this type of thing.
Yeah, and it was.
Do you think that people who voted for Donald Trump overlooked his racial rhetoric and therefore wasn't important to them?
No, I think they agree with him.
You think they all?
I think they agree. Yeah, I think they agree.
What percentage do you think of people who voted for Trump agreed with him on those racial issues?
It's about 70%.
You think so?
I think so.
Is it possible for somebody to vote for Donald Trump because their priority is gun ownership rights and not agree with his racial issues, but for them the priority be abortion?
I think that, people are complex, and, maybe it wasn't 80%. Maybe it was hit and miss. But, I think that anyone who would vote for a person that would say these things and would act like that is just, because guns aren't going, guns and abortions, they're not going anywhere. It's just not.
Right, but I think some people who voted for Trump would argue, yeah, he's also not going to register every Muslim in the country. He's never going to be able to do that. Some of his rhetoric. And so I guess if, for example, this individual is voting for Donald Trump because he says he supports gun rights, because he says he's pro-life, they can abhor the racial issues, and if...
But he's taking every position, so it's like, why believe him now? You know what I mean?
But listen, I'm with you there too. But is it not essentially saying that you're upset because, or maybe you're not upset, because they put their needs before the needs of the minority community?
they don't even really know a minority community. Like, have you guys been to a Trump rally? Have you seen, you know,
I did a whole package about it.
you know, like they don't care. They don't even have proximity to some of the
I don't know
people
that I'd
who they're
agree with that.
demonizing.
Listen, I don't like that he's president, but I don't know that I agree with that. I think that a lot of people, and I also just did another piece for The View this week. It comes out on Monday, will be on air on Monday, about race relations in a school in Iowa, high school in Iowa, and every single Trump supporter who I've spoken with, I actually honestly believe, granted I'm a white guy, I honestly believe voted for Trump or supported Trump for reasons other than racist. A lot of people voted for Trump because they hated Hillary Clinton.
People want jobs. People want economic opportunities.
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Absolutely.
Are you a racist?
No.
Okay, so there's my point. There's my point.
We got to wrap here, but John, real quick, what do you think caused the downtick in race relations?
I think it was a combination of things. Look, when people have access to good, decent education, when people have access to decent jobs, not just, the minimum wage level type of jobs, but something that they can actually sustain themselves and their families and have a piece of the American dream, however they define it, even if it's a small piece, we don't have all these racial issues. But when you take, when the economy is not doing well, the education continues to go down, neighborhoods continue to deteriorate, right? And it's not just in the urban areas, it's in the rural areas. Their opportunities dried up. Donald Trump won I forget the number, but he won a lot of counties that are white, that voted for Barack Obama twice, not once, twice. So they said, you know what? Look, they made a decision beyond the rhetoric, right? And said, you know what? First, it's okay for us to do certain things with other countries, of course, but it's very important to start taking care of home first. I'd be an awful father if I didn't look after my own children first.
Yeah, I see your brain spinning.
No, I feel sorry for those people because this guy only puts himself first. He only puts himself first. What his son tell Kasich? You can be the most powerful VP in the history of VPs, in charge of all foreign and domestic policy. Wow. Well, what is Trump going to do? Oh, he's just going to make America great again.
He's going to be the celebrity going to the parties.
Anyone who would appoint Jeff Sessions to do anything doesn't care about anything black at all, ever, flat out. Like it's not even debatable. Like it's not debatable.
Well, we should have my friend Bob Whitson, who has worked in depth in Alabama with Senator Sessions, and he's African American. He's a lot of the stuff. We'll have to bring him back.
Did he not testify? Did he not testify for him?
He did not testify.
Because I thought every black friend Jeff Sessions had testified.
I know, like one of them.
Yeah, 2 or 3. We've had several people ask about where they can get D. Watkins' book, The Cook Up. D, where can they find it?
Everywhere books are sold.
Everywhere books are
sold. Everywhere
on
books
Amazon.
are sold. Yeah.
There you go.
Excellent.
The Cook Up by D. Watkins. Thank you, D.
Thank you.
Thank you, John Burnett, for joining us on this discussion. There's lots to be talked about.
Yes, it's going to be ongoing. So please keep your comments going, and please look up John and look up Dee, and keep talking with them both. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next segment now. Joining us on Skype is Pastor Omar Jawar. Pastor Omar is featured in the Opportunity Lives documentary series called Comeback.
That's right. So Comeback is a series looking at different parts of the country, both urban and rural, looking at how can we make these communities come back. And Omar was named as the first gang interventionist in the state of Texas to help rehabilitate prisoners and other people who are turning their lives around. And he has got some amazing stories of redemption from his work. We're going to play a little clip about his work and about Comeback. Let's roll that first, and then we'll bring in Omar.
This is what I tell them. Most of you will survive this. So what you gonna do? I'm recruiting guys in some of the roughest zip codes, and I'm asking them to become frontline soldiers to believe in this idea. Urban life does not have to be limited by violence and a subculture of abuse.
Omar, welcome.
Hello, how are you? Glad to be on with you guys.
Yeah, and you're joining us from Dallas, Texas. How is it there?
I am. Yes. Well, I mean, it's great. We're doing wonderful. We appreciate the opportunity to be on. I'm actually headed to Atlanta right now But yeah, we are happy to be here and believe that. Which I just heard you guys' discussion, and it's pretty intense. I like that. It's bold.
There you go.
That's what we're going for.
He's on the branding. Thank you, Ver. What's the biggest? What did you find? What do you feel as you did this, worked on this documentary, and were involved in it? Is the biggest problem facing prisoners who get out of prison and try to reacclimate themselves to civilian life?
Well, it's twofold. The prisoners who get out go to a different type of prison, and the prison is in urban culture. See, so you have these guys who, they kind of live their lives confined by ideas that will never release them until someone opens the gate. So you just can't open up a prison. It's opening the eyes of the young people who are in there, opening the eyes of the mothers who are suffering. They have to be released through a vision that tells them that redemption is true. And here's the biggest deal, is transformation is possible. Most people believe that whatever you are, you will remain that. So they don't believe that you can transform, but we don't believe that. We believe transformation is absolutely possible.
And how do you put that in their minds that they can transform? Because I can just imagine being in a prison where it's so intense and the negativity and just all around you. How do you transform that? Because your name of your organization is transforming your vision. How do you see people transform the vision of where they can take their lives?
Well, you do it two ways. The first way is it's intentional conversations that you have with the individual. See, I tell people that transformation is not like it's not a cookie cutter process. It's individualized, it's fingerprints. So you got to be willing. What we call it is you have to be very intrusive. That means we have to get right into their world so close that they are comfortable with us being in that space that they may, they may not share with anyone else.
How
so
much of
that's what we do.
How much of the issue is transforming the mindset of those people who are in society to accept folks back?
Good. Yeah. I mean, you are absolutely right. What you have is you have a lot of people who believe that a few people are the problem. And so society says, can we just put them away and push them back? And hopefully we don't have to deal with them. But the truth is, we have to say to everyone that's a part of this that this fire does not stay on the ground. It goes up. It goes up. And when it goes up, it's going to come to your house. It's going to come to your neighborhood. You won't be able to say, well, maybe not me. All of us are going to be affected. So the way we do it, I'm going to tell you, there's nothing more credible than saying how many of you know someone, maybe not you, that are dealing with these same issues. And it goes beyond race, class. It becomes an issue that is seen all across the board.
Dee and John stuck around. Dee, you got a question for him?
Yeah. Could you give the listeners just an idea of a reality of that a newly released person will have coming home? Like, what is that reality? What is that reality like?
That's a very good question. See, when you get out of prison, you're coming home. You have $60, $70 in your pocket. You're going right to the neighborhood that you used to be in. And so now you have a moment of satisfaction because you realize freedom is here. And then you for the first 2-3 weeks, you're trying to get a job. You're trying to get back with your children. You're trying to reacclimate. And then after a while, there's a hopelessness that sets in because you realize the societal blocks in your redemption. So in your mind, you saying, I'm redeemed. But in truth, you got to deal with the issues that most people deal with, and that's finances and relationships. And so that becomes so prevalent in your thought process that you rarely ever get to move beyond that. And so you got to have somebody like, maybe not me, but you have to have someone to say, wait a minute, let me walk you through these landfills because there's landmines in there. You're going to blow up.
Omar, I think it's really interesting what you do because you actually are able to find agents who you work with that go into these communities that are afflicted with gang violence, and you actually work with the gangs to help make sure that they are, helping either stay away or just that they're more conscious of the effect of this environment on these people who are coming and trying to rehabilitate. How do you find that trust? How do you work with gangs?
Well, we call them urban specialists. And so the way you work with gangs, you got to get permission from the gangs. You got to get the guys who run the blocks to agree to allow you to be their spokespersons, their interpreters, their lifeline. Because the OGs or the guys or the females, whoever it is that run those communities, they may not be on the rental sheet, but they absolutely run the streets. So you got to get those guys to agree to be a part of this process. And sometimes the heroes that I look to, they first are villains. So you got to get them to say your characteristic is a major. It's a major. I don't want to act like that. Being a criminal is a great thing, but being bold enough to be in that element helps us to go in without fear, because they give us the entree into their neighborhoods.
I want to be incredibly transparent and admit that as this topic we put in this show, which is a show about race, specifically because there is a disproportionate number of black men in prison than the population, and I for one am not convinced at all that it's because a disproportionate number of black men commit crimes. There's a systemic issue there. As this new administration takes control next Friday, is there any advice that you would give, or anything you'd like to see this incoming administration do in the area of criminal justice reform?
Yeah, they need to watch Bold TV and
I think so.
listen at y'all.
And let these two white people solve the problem? What, are you kidding me? No.
No, we're bringing the best guests.
Yeah. No, I think that what they should do on the real side is you have to have, and not just because it's my branding, but I'm telling you the truth. In neighborhoods, you need urban specialists. You need people who understand urban culture to give you advice. And sometimes that advice does not come from folk who are qualified through degrees, but qualified through their process, their own experiences. And so you have to be willing to get different types of help, because the goal is bigger than the role. The goal is to transform the community. So whatever the role is, you got to be able to go to barbershops and everywhere. Right. So that means you have to be very intentional, not just playing with it. You can't say, nah, I ain't going to say that.
John's got a question.
Well, Well, thanks for your insight and all the great work that you're doing. My question is, do you think that when you look at how government goes about trying to solve certain things, many times they take one issue and try to deal with one issue at a time.
Right.
Given the fact that this issue is very systemic, do you think that we need to change the government approach to solving things? And what I mean by that is to address jobs, education, criminal justice reform all at once, holistically, to create an empowering environment.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that doing it as a one-off or as a standalone idea is not productive, and it don't work. You're right. It is systemic. I believe that what Clay said is right also, that you cannot assume that, well, all of these guys must be criminal. Sometimes there is some underlying and underpinning issues that we got to do. But here's the key. The key to it is we have to agree. And what I mean by we is people in urban culture have to agree that this is not who we are, that this is not our hand, that we're going to have to be dead, and this is it, and this is how we got. You cannot do, because you create a permanent underground. And then what the government should do is say, those who agree that this is not where we are, we're going to empower you with every portion of our leverage that we can use to empower you to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so Pastor Omar, can you talk a little bit about, because what you're talking about, I totally agree. We have to change the perception, and you've been working with Deion Sanders. Can you talk about that relationship a little bit?
Yeah, Deion and I are very close friends. He's a member of our church. But what Deion does, he does this program called Truth, and it's the same thing. Deion is a real urban specialist. And this is why I keep saying that word. He makes mistakes. He goes into the community. He is a representative of what the culture is about. Some of it is celebrity. Some of it is vulnerable. Some of it is transparent, but it's real. And so what we do, We empowered. I call him Prime so much. I was about to say Prime, but we empowered Dion with the ideas to say, brother, this is who you choose. And so he'll bring them to us and say, Pastor, does this guy fit this bill when he tries to get coaches and mentors? Because his real goal is getting young people to and through college and then helping single mothers. That's where his passion is.
Pastor Omar, we're going to have to wrap up here, but a lot of people are asking where they can see this documentary.
You can go to Opportunity Lives, and you can see the documentary. It's called We Became a Hero, but Opportunity Lives.
Yep,
it's a
called
great
Comeback.
documentary.
Yep, it's
Yeah,
called Comeback.
The whole comeback series, yes.
Yep.
The whole comeback series, and ours is We Became a Hero. And then you can go to urbanspecialist.org, urbanspecialist with an S.org, and you can see us. But thank you guys for having me
Great.
on.
Pastor
I
Omar
appreciate
Jawar,
it.
thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Good show,
Thanks.
Carrie. Good show. And I'm glad you
No.
guys stuck around. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deion Sanders is a good guy. He came to my high school, which was like unheard of.
Yeah.
Dunbar is surrounded by 4 really dangerous neighborhoods, and you got to go through one of these sections to get in. He came in, gave a speech, with his uniform. It was back when he was playing for who he played for after the 49ers.
Clearly made an impact.
Yeah, it was good.
Played for a couple of different teams.
Maybe the
No,
Cowboys.
In
well,
baseball, he did multiple.
Yeah, no, but I really enjoyed this conversation. Let's keep it going, and I hope that you both and all of us here and all of you viewers have a great Martin Luther King weekend. And
See you
I
here.
know
See you in D.C. next
be in
week. I'll be
DC.
here next week.
yep, and we'll see you on Bowl Global. Thanks, guys.
Sorry, I thought we wrapped already.